You know, you gotta do something.
You're live.
Okay, now we are live, yep, see you all.
Wow.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. The approval of the agenda, there are two district grants that have to be added, and that's all I'm aware of. Yeah,
Under new business, yes, sledge event, New
Sledge.
Ross, sledge event, New Ross Rec.
okay,
You get your icebergs and that, you-
anything else? Approve it as amended,
so moved.
Second.
discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried. Public input, I'm unaware of any other than the appointments. Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, February the 9th. There's our omissions.
We approve the minutes.
Discussion, all those in favor? Oh, motion's carried. Proclamations that I'm aware of. So I seem to be. Don't even move. Okay, committee reports, committee of the whole, February the 16th. And there are a couple of motions there that I guess we need to approve. Two zero two three zero five four, 2023. Wow. 056. Somebody, there's second. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. So Carol, you're here, are you ready to do your public presentation, or you want to wait till 9 o'clock?
Well, whatever you like.
I'm ready now.
You said 10 o'clock.
Oh, no,
No, it's the ring.
that's right, they're not here, okay.
I think they're
Well, whatever
outside.
you want to do.
They're outside.
They're not quite ready yet. There's one more
They're
member.
not quite ready yet.
So what do you want? It's up to you.
Well, let's do yours. Yeah.
Okay.
It won't take long, right?
No, I already sent you all the information.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's always fun to be here. Whoops, forgot. So anyway,
You didn't bring the caboose, did you?
no, I didn't. I can't lift it. But I did bring something else. Every so often, things come into the
Just a little
office
small.
and they
transaction.
want to know, what is it?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's old. I'll leave it to you to decide. Took us a while. Anyway. Always have to bring you something.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. I'm here because I want to talk about the Railway Museum that we want to develop at the freight station at the Chester train station. Which means that we already have the buildings. Freight shed is there. It's not ready for use by any chance, but it is there. And it is the original. So if you looked at the pictures that I sent, most of it was just a blurb on what the Heritage Society does. And once you start to list things like that, I think you don't want to listen to that here. So what happened was that back before Christmas in the fall, my son, and I don't know whether to thank him or to say, ooh, but anyway, came across a train and he knew that the Heritage Society had been looking for a train for a long time. And so he connected one at Moncton. Turned out it was a caboose and they were going to sell it. It was online for sale. And so we thought, well, maybe we could afford the price, maybe. So anyway, we got in touch to find out, to discover that it was worth approximately $10,000 for scrap, and that's what they had planned to do with it. So the Nolan family, who come from this area, offered to donate it to us. So here we had a free caboose, but it was sitting in a scrapyard in Moncton, and we had to move it here. So eventually found someone who could move it. And it came down and eventually, before we could even set it up, we had to build a rail bed. So we all now know how to lay rails and make a rail bed because it was all done with volunteer work. That little effort cost us somewhere around $34,000 to move it. So, I mean, it's not cheap. And of course, we were in the middle of the hurricane, so it sat for a while on the side of the road. Anyway, we had the caboose. So then what do you do with the caboose? That still needs some work to be done inside. And then on top of that, we were offered a large chance to display a railway artifact that came from the railway museum that had been in Lunenburg. And the gentleman that owned that was looking for a place to put his display and to make the displays. We didn't have enough room in the station, so we were left with the freight shed, which is original. And the thing is that we all started out basically to put a platform between the station and the caboose so that people could access it. And that has changed in price as we went on. Started out at approximately 21,000 to build 2 years ago. It's now 49,000 to build with the price of materials and so forth. So these things are getting beyond our reach, hence the application for the grant. I think that Chester needs to start looking at how it can make itself a destination. And I think that this will help. We have between 4,000 and 6,000 people who go through the railway station in the course of a time when we're open. So this would bring more people who would be interested in doing things other than, I'm sure, just looking at the station. But it is all original. We have not changed anything. And so because of that, we're sitting in a heritage building that's 1905. Before that, we had applied to obtain the land, from the Department of Natural Resources and from CN for a cheap price. And although it's been under consideration with them now for, must be 6 months, we still haven't heard back. But eventually we will. But the idea was to save that open space before somebody got in before we did. Because as of now, we own the land, the buildings, but not the land. We lease the land. But we did extend that lease so that it's, and the land that we lease further, so that we have lots of land. And we have other things to offer. I mean, we don't push Foreman Hobble. He changed the way fishing takes place on the eastern coast. You'd never know that it happened here. So, you know, went from sail power to, as I think I said somewhere there, horsepower. So what I think is that although the train and the caboose, what have you, is a benefit to the village. And I mean, I don't think you can say it's not going to be. It also maintains our heritage, but it also is the only railway station on this end of the province. There's none, the rest are all gone. So it seems that we should be trying at least to keep it and to make some kind of use for it other than sitting there with supplies for a yard sale, if you will. It still has knob and wire electricity shown in it, although there is no electricity at this point. But in order to do that, you have to make it accessible, and ramps are expensive. And so are the platforms, because they have to be built, because this is a public building, to Canadian standards. So it's more stringent than it would be if you and I wanted to stick a deck on our house. The caboose needs some work, but we have lots of volunteers who are willing to help. When I put the estimate in for the caboose, it's almost impossible to determine how much that might cost I mean, I'm not looking to replace it with plate glass windows or anything. We're looking to replace it with similar artifacts of the same age. So we're looking at roughly 1979, which is the year that this caboose was finally taken out of service and not used any longer. So if we use the caboose and the station as a central point, then it seems to me that we should be able to send people off and advertise Ross Farm, the beach at Blanford, the walking trail up Castle Rock, the walking trails at New Ross. I mean, there are all sorts of things that we could be saying, come to Chester and then you can do X, 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 X all over the place. Camp at Gary's Island, swim in the Lido, visit whatever. And then we're helping everybody. You've got a landfill site. You're working on walking paths and you're working on parks and so forth. We've got a trail with beautiful pictures and things on it. It seems to me that we don't boast about what we have and we don't put it out there. So people come to see and they end up, you know, people say, oh, well, you're going to see it online. Well, I'll tell you right now that the majority of people who come to the station, other than to buy goods that people have made, which supplies money for the people who are in the village and in the area, as well as the Heritage Society, benefit from that. And the more that we can send people other places, the better. People don't always get down to the village. Most times they go right on past. More often to stop somewhere out at East Chester and say, well, where's Chester? Miss Chester. Well, they didn't go down. And we can't just say we're a beautiful view. That's part of it, but it's only one small part. I can go down the Ashpatagon and see beautiful views too. So I think that although this is an expensive proposition and we're trying to save a heritage building that we have now, I think that council and the municipality can benefit. And in order to do that, we need, of course, funding. And that funding, although we can apply to a number of provincial ones, is expensive. So we have the money to apply for one grant now, maybe by next year. If we don't get enough this year, we'll apply again. But either this begins or eventually it becomes too onerous to even bother to continue on with it. But we will continue on with parts of it as we can do it. So hence the ask for money here, because it's not just the Heritage Society that benefits, it's everybody. And it's time that we took the reins in our own hands and said, this is what we do. You've got a wind farm. How many people do you suppose can go camping at a wind farm? I mean, we don't even think about it now. You know, sustain what we're doing there, the bike paths along the highway. I mean, it just goes on. And I'd like to see, of course, the older buildings, most of which are in the Blanford area and Chester, signed so that people, and even just removable signs that can be there in the summer when people are traveling and walking, because that's people want to walk and look, that those signs don't just say Sam Lamy lives here, it was built in XX time, but it should include some kind of a catch, if you will, so that they can look at the sign and says, okay, in this house, a little boy, it was used for quarantine. A little boy died of diphtheria in the upper room.
More information.
You know, just little bits of stories so that you catch the person's eye, then they can go back online, if you will, or back to the Heritage Society or wherever to hear the stories. And we want to use the station to tell some of those stories and to gather. So That's why I think you should give me lots of money and help with this. So if you have any questions,
Is this your last week project or what?
I never anticipated to do this. Somebody said, oh, I got my Christmas present early. Well, okay, so now my birthday's coming up. I'd like to have a birthday present, please, to match it. Alan, I don't know. I know it's gonna end sometime soon. Because like you, the age just keeps growing up and up and up. But I don't lose the ideas that I can think of that might help us.
No. Well, I don't have any questions. I know.
I have a question.
Okay, Derek.
You're requesting 77,000 and change.
Yes,
The whole project is gonna cost you how much?
that's what you see.
So you're asking for the 100%. What about the other, you're looking to the Han fund?
I'm looking to the Han Fund. I haven't talked with Sam yet, but we've been talking other things other than,
I've been thinking of this as a presentation to the fund as well.
oh, good.
In here too.
Oh, yeah, well, there's that and the village commission. I've asked or will ask.
So the expectation is you wouldn't need the full 77.
I'm hoping that I don't need all of that money. And
That's
that
the
the,
total project. cost.
that the others will come in with some money.
Yeah.
And that I can return whatever I don't use. And I mean, we have no reason to keep what we don't need for the project.
How much do you have in your reserves now that you can apply to that?
Well, apparently we have about $8,000. Whatever we raise at this point in time, Derek, we have to have, what is it, 25% or something of it, cash up front. And then if we can get money from the Han grant and from the commission, that gives us some more.
Yeah.
So that would be what we could put in at this time, keeping in mind that we have already paid out $43,000 on this project.
So that's all paid for though, right? That's done.
Yeah, that's already done. We don't owe that. So there's lots of fundraising going on.
Thank you,
Okay.
Carol, for your presentation. And my question was just along the lines of Councillor Wells, what the total project budget was.
Yeah.
And looking at the parameters or the checklist with our major project, it's 70%
70,
or 90%.
I don't know, the last one I read was either
Yeah.
70 or 75%.
Yeah, so we'll have to look at that in terms of the totality of the budget.
I think
I would think.
the
And that,
new ones were 75, am I right? There.
okay, thank you. And of course, that's up to that much. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
whether we,
Oh, I
That's on
mean,
the
that,
application.
yeah, when we
Yeah.
toss around the figures and so on. So my next question is specifically related to the revenues, and you've identified those with Derek, thank you. I do have a question around HST rebate as an
we
organization.
do get that back,
Okay.
a percentage of it.
Okay, perfect, because that's certainly a bit of a, it's a bit of a gem of information with organizations.
Yep.
I know that a few that I work with, the New Ross, have made the effort to look at going outside of New Ross in terms of maybe an accounting firm or a tax firm to look at that, and it certainly outweighs any cost for those groups in terms of the HST rebate.
Yeah.
I know there are certain requirements around a certain percentage of a project has to be government revenues. So sometimes the organization qualifies and sometimes they don't. In the cases that I'm familiar with, I'm not talking about you necessarily, that would be, of course, for your
well,
individuals and
We're fortunate, we have a registered CPA on our,
perfect, so you
board.
qualify, yeah, they would probably help you qualify. No, you would qualify
They
every
know
year.
how to do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, I should have said that. But yeah, so that's part of the revenue as well, and that goes back to the days when I would be looking at applications that would come into the province or the federal government. Certainly that would be included, your HST rebate is part of your revenue
Yeah.
for that total project. So we would have to look at that, probably back that out as a revenue source, I
well,
would think,
that-
I would think. It's revenue
Take
source.
it
Yeah.
into consideration.
Yes, yeah, just clarification
Yeah.
questions, that's all, thank you.
Anyone else, any questions? Anybody know what that little piece of cement is?
Like a weight or something.
it is a weight, but what for?
I don't know that.
Weighing,
Gold.
weighing cargo.
Weighing
A
gold.
balance on a scale.
Don't you wish? This is very modern, believe it or not. It is a weight that is attached to a helium balloon, to keep it from floating away.
Oh, people shoot those down now, you can't, what, you can't.
Well, I don't know, but this is, I mean, this is the sort of thing that comes in. Is it old? I don't know. So then you go looking. And that's what,
For a helium balloon.
that's what it is.
Well, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Anyway, if you have no more questions,
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Good to see you again.
thank you.
And
Yes.
I don't have to tell you, I mean, this is all part of the process.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Big Sam, move on.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Oh, Sam and I will have a standing date, I'm sure.
Well, at least he's had presentation, so he doesn't need much more.
That's right. Well, sometimes he just gets it over the phone in a short letter.
He just wants to know how much do you want?
But I also know that the Hahn Trust has been very, very generous to us. And so I even hesitated to ask for more this year.
New Year.
No, that's what Sam reminded me. It's a new year. I can try again. But anyway, thank you very much.
Once Danny hung it over rant and rage, he can probably give it to you.
Could be. And while we're at it, I must remember, part of the grant that the Hahn Trust gave us to fix up the gazebo included a plaque of some sort for Danny and for John. And that's in place. It's a granite stele, and it has a inscription on it that recognizes them for their work at Lordly and in the municipality. So that was a part that took us forever, 2 years, I think, Sam, by the time we finally got it done. But it's there, you can take a look at it, it's by the gazebo.
Very nice.
It's very.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
pleased, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, take
thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Church Memorial Parish. How you doing this morning?
Good, yourself?
Are you really good so far? It's early though.
That is true. It's true. We had one more person attending at Bill Church, and we're not sure what is held Bill up.
Okay.
But we'll go ahead anyway.
Soldier on, will you?
Yeah,
You'll soldier on.
we'll soldier on for sure. Everybody knows Tommy. And I'm Michael O'Connor, treasurer and a director for Church Memorial Park Board. Of course, our purpose, this is sort of becoming an annual event. And it goes without saying that we really couldn't operate without your support and your continued support, and we very much appreciate that.
It's a very important facility.
We're going to, yeah, I'm always reminded of that story of it. It really got me going, because the other night I went to the high school game. It was late at night. Most people don't see what goes on there, but there wasn't any parking, and cars were parked on Pig Loop Road. And I said, well, this is going to be, a real nice event. And RCMP drove up. I thought, what is this? And 5 of them got out. And I thought, okay, what's going on? I go in, and there's a woman that was taking issue with, or a mother who was taking an issue with the referee or whatever it was, and she was just out of it. And things get fairly passionate. You say, well, okay, this is this is hockey, and this is Chester, right? So, and I know it's not just Chester; it's every little community, right? It's all over the place. But it was, but it was hot. I gotta say, and because the curling crowd had their snowball event as well. I mean, it was something to see. Unfortunately, it all happens in the dark. Nobody else sees it. So you see the facility in the daytime, but not in the evening. It's a significant. It's quite inspiring, actually. Anyway, highlights of our operation last year. Let's 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
And then some comments on our unfolding, 22, 23. And then what are we doing with the building as far as the future is concerned? So we had a really good year in 2021 and 2022. And we had, what was significant about it was the Synergy production. It made a big difference in our operation. And in terms of renting the space. And we basically positioned ourselves over the years to try to capture that business. And it's really Tommy's good work with the logistics people that helps us promote that as an off-season source of revenue for us.
I can't help it. Tommy, I know that they contacted you just a month or so ago about renting the space. Did you sort that?
I was back and forth with them for a few months. I thought it was gonna happen. Got an email a week, 10 days ago that they thought they had secured space that could give them an extended season.
Okay.
I offered them the building from the 1st of April to the middle of September. They were looking for another 3 or 4 weeks on each end, so I got back to them that I could stretch it to the end of September. And haven't heard from them. But I know the contact that, the go-to person I was working with was and probably still is out of the country. And, but
You're
it's,
working with them,
Still.
that's good.
oh yeah, certainly with this group, it's supposed to be a big year for Nova Scotia for
Yeah, it
the
is.
film industry. But, I'm holding out hope because it's not uncommon for them to call today and say, we'd like to move in next Wednesday. They expect, they will throw the money around, they expect to be
Yeah.
catered to, so it's not totally uncommon that they give you a week's notice and say they want to move in type thing.
So it's not really fine.
It's not final. The person I work with is local, so they have a personal interest to try to
Right.
keep as much business in the area as they can, but I can't say for sure that it's going to or not.
I may follow up.
Is Tim? He must,
Well, there's things I know.
yeah. Well, I have more off the record contacts in that world than I do.
That's right.
How much is that contract worth to you?
The last one was probably 125,000.
Yeah. They're significant.
Yeah, and we also gotta understand too, that if they come in and want lights changed or something like that, they just do it. If they come in and they need, something done to the building, they just do it. And when they walk away, we benefit for years. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a super facility for that when you think about it, right? You've got the space,
Wide
large,
open, they can
two
do
large
what they choose.
buildings, they can they can build a full blown house, which is what they did in the Sinister production beside the hockey rink.
they were looking for 40,000 square feet, and we can offer them 35. Plus our parking lot, our green space.
Yeah.
Which, just, it's the same people that, right from Haven, the center, a lot of them are the same
Same
people. That's just hired on with different companies for different shows, so most of them know what's there, and most of them love the fact that they have free reign of the building when they're here. They look after opening, locking up, and we basically bend over backwards to help them,
And the spin-off effect, it's just not the revenue from the,
Oh, no.
No, it's big, it's
Just,
big.
When they're
it
here.
multiplies like.
well, that's what I stressed in my last email, that the rink needs the business, but I said, bigger than that, Chester needs the business that falls off this, so, fingers crossed at this time.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Lots of people benefit. No, I just want to see where you were at with it.
Continue with the highlights. So we had total operating days, the compressor days, which we sort of use as an indicator between the hockey rink and the curling rink. We actually were close to a record last year. and we scratch our head and say, well, we also had some issues with COVID in terms of, having closed down at certain times. Actually, we didn't do it. I think we only did it once last year, but because of, a fairly high incidence. I think it was around Christmas time. Anyway, that was sort of an eye opener. That also told us that there was a little bit more, there seemed to be more people coming out of the woodwork to, maybe it was because of the pandemic and they were tired of being stuck at home and all of a sudden they got out, they wanted to do something. And I think that probably had an influence. But anyway, we had revenues of $298,000 from our rice rentals and our facilities and fundraising. We had grant revenue 151,000, so we had a pretty good year on that side of it. We had some good capital projects. We had our semi-annual roof inspection. We had some roof beam repairs as a result of that inspection. We installed a large hot water heater for showers and water. And we had lower roof repairs, and that was all the changed rooms and the water room, and we improved the roof quality. We had done the major roof, thanks to you, several years ago, where we had resurfaced it, but we didn't do the lower roofs. We did those, and we installed a brand new curling condenser for the curling club. So it was pretty active. As far as I just wanted to touch on the annual roof inspection in 2021, because, this is now the primary focus for us. It keeps probably the board awake at night. We know that it's, there's a ticking activity here that we need to, or structure that we need to deal with sooner than later, and it's not new to any of you. So we're temporary reinforcing we put temporary reinforcing support was added to the hockey and the curling roof beams, and we maintain the current protocols that were instituted in 2015, and that is basically we close the rink after a substantial snowfall, and Tommy or a contractor will come in and clean the roof. We are starting now amongst the board members to have an understanding of the impacts to a viable operation that this measure is having, and these protocols. And so there's a little bit more fire under our asses now to move that along. In addition to the semi-annual inspections, which keep us on our toes for sure. We received support from the municipality, of course, the annual grant for our operations, our emergency grant for the pandemic. We had support. We got moral support from the Recreation and Parks group, your group. Not only is it moral, but it includes advice, which is much appreciated. We had funding from the Pew Trust. We had federal government wage support, which we were entitled to. But we pursued it. And we also tapped into the provincial restoration grant for those capital projects that we talked about. We had our traditional community, or at least our current community outreach, which is the community garden, the trail, which has turned out to be, quite popular. We're maintaining the maintenance, even though some of our staff grumble at that because they're ice people, God damn it, not trail people, right? We've had good take up on our small library and the rest station, especially by the school program, the underage school program, right? Donated ice time to our Chester municipality, the Chester Minor Hockey, fundraiser, or discounted ice. We still discount ice for daytime and evening groups. And we hosted the Junior C washer toss. COVID plan, I think I already touched on it. It seems to be on the other side, but I don't know. But we're still a bit wary about that, given the deep learning that went on with that. 22-23 unfolding. There is a typo on this, by the way. I thought I got it, but I obviously didn't. The opening and closing times for the skating and hockey rink is really 2020. The year should be 22 and 23. And same thing with the curling rink. The question marks beside those dates are basically just an extrapolation. We're trying to keep ourselves, we got a bit of a puzzle going on here. We have the potential of a production. We have the potential for further restorative type gathering of information and repairs. And we have extending the hockey season to compensate for weather or whatever. So that's what the question marks are. We're not sure when we're going to shut down. Curling is pretty much always, they're almost like clockwork. So total operating time for the compressors under these numbers would be about 359. So that'd be down, that's down almost 20 compressor days, which is usually, as I said, directly related to ice rentals and whatnot. We did have an annual tournament under age 9 girls for the first time. We're really quite proud of that because the mix of players in the arena is changing. There are more females than there have been in the past. There are more female teams. I go to my dentist and she asked me about, how can she improve her stopping and a few other things. And so these people are, it's there's a passion out there that wasn't there before.
Some of those curling teams that are attached to Chester are doing really good.
They're doing extremely good. It makes us proud, right? The grants, so we did receive our funding grant from the municipality. Again, thanks very much. I've submitted an application to the restoration program for the province of Nova Scotia. We met with Daniel Barkhouse yesterday just to go over it. And then our annual Pew funds are late this year because they are reviewing their heritage list. We're on the heritage list. And they're saying that they would likely, there will be a payment in June of 2023, which works fine for us.
You know how much that will be?
Oh, yeah. So in October, I began negotiations with the Pew to renew the agreement, a 4-year agreement, which came to an end in 22. And the first thing I started with was an inflator, which they shut me down on real quick. And they said, no, because I'm dealing with the Philadelphia Foundation of the Pews. And they basically said, no, get your application in and the board will consider it. But I can always pick up on language somewhat from the program officers, whether it's going to be, it really is small potatoes, but the review I know why is going on because the equity markets have taken a real kicking in the US and there's still some nervousness about it, right? And that their whole trust fund is based on equity, right? More or less. Anyway, the long and short of it is, the answer to your question is it works out to be just a little over $200,000 per 4 years. So it's roughly 50,000. We've been netting 51,000 after exchange, more or less 51,000.
Is this for operating or capital?
This is in the last number of years they've hooked it to capital.
To capital.
Yeah, and they require a 4-year capital plan, and they're they're rigorous, absolutely rigorous.
We're the only people in Canada that get money to butter.
There's actually the Bonili, yes,
Oh, that one.
and us, and, but I did notice that Howard, the father, has another memorial rink in Ontario,
Oh.
which I was totally surprised about. As I was looking at some of their background to the trust, right? And it's a nice place for us. I'm more confident about getting that now than maybe I was before I was going in. So that's good. For our, I'm on our projects that we have undertaken this year. And actually, we didn't undertake a lot. We basically removed some trees on the north side because they were interfering with the sweep of the roof. And it was one of the recommendations from a Stantec inspection. We held the rest of our capital because we wanted to look at the bigger project, which was the roof. We thought that was a priority. So we didn't do the asphalt or the line parking lot, and we didn't groom the back lot. Those were two of our projects that we had planned to do. We had significant efforts by our HR committee to try to recruit a licensed ice maker. We did, only to have him cancel at the last minute because his boss offered them significantly more money. We're still doing in-house training or getting one of our people trained to take that on. I think I'm, what is fair to say, more confident now. Yeah, so hopefully he'll be able to pass his next test. And if that's the case, we'll be ahead of the game. I've already touched on the pews. We're certainly promoting, and we've touched on the film media. The arena improvement. We have a lot of focus in the board on the roof system. And we've touched on the great logistics of the park overall as an important off season, but also people look at that space and say, well, what are you doing with that space? Well, the problem is that if you're not going to have a tournaments, you're not going to have a marina, you're not going to be able to support all these users unless you have a parking lot, and there's nowhere to put it. So we focused on a number of issues, but the key one was, well, what do we do? In the future, do we rebuild this? Do we restore it? Or do we just do nothing, right? We're a bunch of volunteers. Do we really need this headache, right? Anyway, after a lot of soul searching, we said the board, we're going to focus on the roof system. We're going to look at restoration. And that's where we're at. We said, okay, what goals do we want with the restoration? Well, the first and foremost thing we want to do is we want to restore the glulam roof beams and that system, the supporting structure. And we think that sequestering or restoring is a good way to sequester carbon. There's a good argument. There's a good story that can be made on restoring those roof beams, that wood. And we've all been educated on wood in the last couple of years, in the last about 6 months or so, in dealing with one of our contractors that we have doing a really good structural analysis. And so we developed a bit of passion around that. We also want to extend the building life, which will come with the restoration. And we're being told that we can extend it. The two proposals we had so far were not proposals, but inspections, pre-inspections. Stantec said you could extend it with a carbon fiber product for 20 years. And WRD Wood Research and Development said, oh, no problem, you can extend that 60 years if you do the right things for it, the right remedy. So we were a little bit passionate about that. He also, WRD said we can improve the National Building Code of Canada standards for the building to the current standards. Now, the building was built in 1970, standards are probably 1965. He's saying that he can take that to 2015 to the current standard. So that gives us a lot of confidence in where we can take that. But so the third goal that we had was to remove our safety, things that keep us up at night, and our operational concerns during the winter season in particular. And we don't want to be held ransom to the severity of the weather in terms of our operation. And if you think about it, it helps us achieve some of our longer term goals, which was to permit us to look at alternatives to improve our solar ability to capture energy. And we probably have the largest single south-facing roof system in Chester. A conservative estimate is 16,000 square feet. And I can see us generating significant kilowatt hours of energy from that system, which on the off season will generate net gains to the system. And it might dovetail nicely with the municipality's drive to with their turbine in out the way, right? So there are lots of potential there for us to be able to take advantage of a reinforced, significantly reinforced, strengthened roof system. Our planning process is underway, budgeting, we're gathering data. We had sensors, these are temperature and stress sensors attached to beams in both the hockey rink and the curling rink, and those are being monitored on a 24-hour basis by WRD out of New Brunswick. And they will tell us if there's a snowstorm or if the wind or if there's been a change in the beams. And so far, we've had such a mild winter. It's been more or less, we've been blessed. As I said, there's applications for funding underway to the province of Nova Scotia. We'll be asking the municipality to help us as well, move this along. The pews, that I will adjust the pew grant. The one thing I didn't say, Derek, is that I can ask them for 2 payments for 1 year rather than a payment every year. And that's where I will be pushing. It's still not a lot, but it all adds up. So between the province of Nova Scotia and our discussion with Danielle, of course, was never a sure thing, but she has said that we would qualify for 150,000 under that revitalization. We get another $100,000 from the pews. There's passion in the community amongst our users. Chester Minor Hockey. I'm not sure about curling, but we will be briefing the curling crowds shortly, and they will be asking them to step up as well. So we are going to plan in the next year significant public fundraising initiative for the facility. I think it's a good time because we were talking about this 2 years ago. We didn't want to do it because we didn't want to compete with the Playhouse. I think we're almost there now where we can, a new issue can fit in and move it along. I also wanted to talk to some of the councillors about some advice on a COA, on the Community Innovative Fund, and to see if we can tap into that based on, I guess, my little bit of monologue about what can we do with solar power? What can we do as a way for this arena to become more efficient. And I'm not ashamed to say that we have a lot of wood in the ceiling, in the roof, supporting it, that can sequester a lot of carbon. So I'm not above leveraging those items for all they're worth to get funding from some other sources.
In terms of COA, you had great success with them, I think, before I got on council. Probably about 15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, I think that they sponsored a big amount. There was a big, which is a good thing. It's a good sign is what I'm saying. So they already believe in your project is what I would suggest. And you've had success with them through that either same stream or similar stream of funding that you just referenced.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good sign. Very
Yeah.
good sign.
The staff here would have, well, access to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with a local COA rep who's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry I'm taking a lot of your time here, but this is an important year for us. The Stantec inspection for the structure, we had that done throughout the latter part of 2022. We got the final report in November of 2022. They did not complete the structural analysis. They, despite we had asked them, but they were hard pressed time-wise to deliver what we asked them to. They said the hockey arena is a priority with a higher degree of deteriorated condition and longer clear spans and that are vulnerable to excess loading. And that is the snow loading, shifting from one side to the other. And the history, and we gave them all the materials, so they had all the history of it. They said, however, those beams can be reinforced and supported, not necessarily with the steel products that we have there. The steel products we have now, we always understood that was a temporary measure. So they're talking about reinforcing it with a carbon fiber reinforced plastic, and it would extend the life. But they would say, the most that I would get out of them would be you can get 20 years, and they would put it in paper, and they put it in their report, right? But you got to maintain the monitoring and the closures after a heavy snowfall. Other recommendations include surface treatments on the beams outside, and removing some of the old growth trees that have grown up now, affecting the ability for the wind to sweep it off. Now, quite frankly, the snow conditions have changed, and weather is another factor, a big factor. Where change in climate is a big factor. The WRD inspection, and we came about them. We said, we've got wood beams. Maybe we should get somebody that focuses on wood. And I ended up finding Dan Tingsley with Wood Research and Development through, believe it or not, Central Mortgage and Housing. I actually found it from Sid Dumeric, put me on to a structural guy, and structural guy put me on to another guy, and this guy came out of the blue, called me from Central Mortgage and Housing, and he said, oh, we work with Glulam for high-rise apartments and whatnot. He said, go talk to this guy. So we talked to this guy, and he came down. That's how we got to WRD. Turned out that they're all over the world, and they're big. They have a head office, and believe it or not, in New Brunswick. Anyway, they installed the stress temperature and sensors, installed the core samples. We didn't know what those beams were made of. I mean, they could have been large, they could have been, we knew they were BC fir, but there was no formula for how they were made. So they took core samples, and then they sent them off to their lab, and they came back. It is BC larch, and they know exactly how it was constructed. So that we didn't know. The beams were under design to start with, and they don't meet the current National Building Code. There's some decay and defects. The condition state rating, so they have a tool. I don't think it's used widely in the wood beam business, that then identifies not the load condition, but the condition of the overall beams. And I attached a matrix to this presentation, you've got it. And he basically said that we're a 3. He said with remedy, we can take it to a 2. And if you look at it, I mean, I won't get into it, you've had the document, but he's basically saying, if you take it to a 2, you can get 60 years, 64 years, and 80% of the life of the building renewed, or 80% of the roof rebuilt, renewed. Now, of course, the devil's always in the details, but that they're just about halfway, if not 3/4 of the way through the structural analysis. I've seen the board, not the board, but the finance committee has seen the initial designs. We're impressed, to say the least. But we have to remove the steel plates, condition the boards or the beams by removing the glue, and the existing steel supports that we put in there, so that they can look at refacing those with sheathing, high fiber strength sheathing, epoxied on, and then with the reinstallation of laminate, 2 layers of large laminate on the bottom. They're 1 inch thick along the bottom of the beams and 1 inch at the top. And that, along with proper preparations, will extend the life of the building. Now, we need to buttress all this with a further inspection once the beams are removed. And I think that was one of the reasons we still want to know what the condition of the beams were. We know the condition of 3 beams that were really needed repair, but we don't know the condition of the rest of them. We're looking for previous pictures, and if we can get those, then we'll have a more confident idea of exactly what we need to do. Because one of the things we've said to the WRD is we don't have the money to do a full-blown rebuild right now. But we want to take this in 3 steps. 1, an investigation, gather data, get a good, clear picture, because we've got 1 chance of doing this. And the second thing is to prepare it so that the building itself or the beams themselves are ready to be refaced and strengthened. So that's our 3rd step. And the 3rd step is the most expensive step. So right now we're 80% of our, maybe 70% of our investigation. And so and of course, anyway, that's a WRD inspection. I won't spend any more time on that. The document, by the way, is available. I have made it available to, both documents available to Recreation Department. Chad is aware of it. If you look at our planning process, we're basically down to number 4, the top 4. We're right in the middle of the structural analysis and the pre-design drawings, which we've taken a look at. We're stalled, quite frankly, because we're running out of capital on our analysis in the near-term restoration design. So when I talk about a near-term restoration design, if we take the steel down, we gotta do something. So the fix is to basically look at the fulcrums on the roof, which are in a strange place, but I'm not an engineer or anything else, but I understand how it works. And they're going to basically tie those 2 ends together with a very strong wire or cable with the turnbuckle, and they're going to tighten those up, try to pull the beams back up where they do sag. And they see that as a temporary measure only, to give us time to raise capital necessary to do our final thing. So, but that's basically what the planning is. That's where we're at. That's where we're going. In terms of money, which is always comes down to money, the budget is fluid right now. You have to appreciate that. a week ago, before I submitted this to Pam. I had a low number of $800,000 for the whole project. And that's driven by the Stantec. They gave me a Class C estimate. Said, well, there are a number of caveats on it, but they said the rebuild portion of that would be about $300,000. And that's one of the reasons we went to WRD, because we thought that was on the way low, way low. So with WRD, it's closer to 1.5 million. So I basically, the way I'm looking at it is somewhere between 1.2 as we get a little closer on this. And of course, every time you dip you get a little bit more information, you dip in a little bit more, you get a feel. So we're looking at 1.2 to 1.5, and some people will say you're still dreaming, but that's what I've been told. So we'll take it there, but it's fluid. That's all I can say. Okay. But I think if we're looking at 1.5 and we're financing that over 50 to 60 years, that is a terrific return. Terrific on the facility. And whether you want that facility there for 60 years or not, that's another story. But nevertheless, the building will be a good building.
Will it be warmer?
Now I know. Will it be warmer? That is still a preoccupation, but you know what? In 50 to 60 years, if somebody can't make it warmer, but that's a cosmetic thing, Derek, just like the beaches, the bleachers on your ass, right? You sit in there, I'm an old guy. I sit on those bleachers, my bum hurts, and I'm freezing. I know. So yes, we need to do something about that. But we have to slay a few more dragons first.
Never this cold when I played.
No, of course not.
Fix the roof first.
Fix the roof, yeah. So we've expensed probably and committed 115,000 on the investigative part. We're looking at another 65,000, and we're hard pressed to get to 65,000 right now. We can put it off, but we want to keep a certain amount of initiative, but like information begets information, and information begets funding. And unless you have the information and you know what's going on, you can't get the funding. So it's a catch-22. So basically we ran into a wall. We need another 65 to basically get a pretty good picture of what we're dealing with. I mean, I still put a caveat on that. We still need a final inspection based on once we remove the steel panels and prepare the beams. But I don't waste any more of your time, but that's basically where we're at.
No, that's a good update.
No waste of time.
Questions, people?
No, I'll just comment. Thank you all for the work that you've done. I know, Michael, you've spent a tremendous amount of time just preparing grant applications, things to Pew Trust. It's a lot of work for a volunteer. And, whether we get 60 years out of the building might be questionable, but 20 years is reasonable, 25. I mean, it's worth an investment for that number of years, because I know it's been going around, so I'll bring it up, that others have commented that we just shouldn't put any more money into it and have a new rink. Well, a new rink wouldn't happen overnight, and an investment in a new rink is a fair amount of money. And I know that I've been approached by somebody to say, why don't you just build a new rink? And I think you have been approached too, so I'll just, it's a fair amount of money, so unless there was significant money there to help with that, it's.
Well, all you have to do with that is sort of try to get those people to take a look at the LCLC, and their statements are online, and just take a look at the operating cost and the capital cost. And that it's a trap to eventually, because the taxpayers of Chester and the municipality will not stand for it, I don't believe. And politically, I still think that the tendency will be to try to push people to Tantallon and Lunenburg and the LCLC. The competition, that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people see. There's a tremendous amount of competition between the rinks for ice time. And we've been reasonably good because we're considered a low-cost producer, and we do siphon off Tantallon ice, but we don't stand well against the competition. And if you're trying to achieve your recreational goals for the people of the municipality, you're not going to achieve them by forcing them to go to Tantallon or to Lunenburg or Halifax or Bridgewater. It's just,
You need all the information before you decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation, actually. It was very, very good. I learned a lot. The only question I think is, when you do start the work, will there be a shutdown period for the rink when you're doing it?
is actually, I actually can't answer that. I don't think it's not an extensive, it's not a time consuming project. If it was going to be done, it would be done over the summer months, as long as we didn't have another conflict. It can be staged so that you do a hockey rink and then you do the curling rink. So you can break it up. There's quite a bit of flexibility that you can apply.
The winter season should not be shut down. We would have to shut down part of the summer season.
Yeah.
You mentioned solar at some point.
Yeah.
Would that be part of this, or is this a sort of?
No, we would want to get the roof done, and then the solar is something that we've talked about. We've talked about putting in the parking lot. We talked about, all sorts of things, because one of our most significant costs, of course, is electricity. And that, it's not going down, it's going up. And so we're not making it part of this, but we want to make it a project for next steps.
Of course, you couldn't do it until you got the roof.
And that,
Board anyway.
even before we learned that we had roof problems, we had done some research on solar. And we got so far with that, not very far with that, and then we realized we had to have a complete engineer study done on the roof to see if it could support the framework and the panels and this and that. Short time later, we discovered we had problems, so that shut the solar thing right down, because
That's a project for another day.
yeah, that's but one of the encouraging things, if we bring this roof back to today's standards, then we can move forward with the solar.
That was my question, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're,
Yeah, recently, just the news story, I'm sure you caught, District of Guysborough has received funding to install solar panels on the Canso Arena and a few other municipal buildings. So I don't know that.
Yeah, no,
I don't know the content of that funding, whether or not the funding included preparation of a roof structure
Okay.
for the installation,
Okay,
but
And so
it would
leverage
be
it.
easy enough to check with the public body what
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
application looked like.
yeah, that's a good
Is it
idea.
about the same vintage shrink?
Yeah.
I know that's a steel
Yeah,
structure, and it's also very cold.
We don't have the record for cold.
Yeah, thank you for your report and all the work you put into this, but
Yeah,
I
you're
know
welcome.
your time consuming. And there's a lot of rumors that go around about the rink. And well, I think this helps clear some of them up. I do agree that you need to complete the analysis, but if we can get another 20 or 30 or years out of that rink for $2, $3, $4 million, to me, that's a great investment. There's a new rink. I've seen the cost and cost to operate and all those things are super crazy. So I think it's important that you finish when you started to see where it would end up. And if it's that investment, I think it's well worth pursuing, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I know Model, you talk to anybody that lives in Model, when they get their tax bill and they see that line, that'll be on there for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Now, my apologies to Lighthouse Food Bank. Somehow I missed you and went right to the ring, so. Yes, you're in good matches now, you know what's going on.
I'm just thinking. You get paid up.
Hey, Alan.
There you go. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I just signed that list. We're ready.
Well, thank you very much. I see on the agenda that you're expecting Wendy Shepherd. I'm not Wendy Shepherd.
Didn't think.
No, okay, good. We have a different haircut. But thank you very much to board and council for accepting our application and the time for this presentation. My name's Scott Milner. I'm the vice chair of the Society for the Food Bank. And I have a pretty strong indication that you likely know Joyce. Yeah, Joyce is on our board as well as a treasurer. So we're representing the board for the Lighthouse Food Bank Society today. Wendy couldn't be here. She sent her regrets. She's actually visiting some family, her son over in Italy. So I'm told that she's watching us online here. So shout out.
It's working this morning.
Good.
She was planning
She was
on it
planning.
anyway. She said it's afternoon there.
Yeah. So shout out to Italy and Wendy, I guess, as well.
Hey, Randy.
Yeah. I understand a lot of our other food bank volunteers are watching us this morning as well. So I'd like to start off. I'm pretty sure you know where our food bank is at the end of Valley Road. It's a busy spot, particularly on Wednesdays, our open times.
I saw quite a few people standing outside yesterday.
Yeah, you see that parking lot is usually full beyond our hours on Wednesday, and you'll see cars and folks standing outside from all across the Chester municipality. All the 39 communities are served, and Tancook. We often have to make sure we get our folks on and off the ferry at the right times too. So just a bit of history. As you know, the food bank started in '86. I'm told that Joyce has been around at least since then.
No,
So, no.
I've been around, but I haven't been here. I came here, I think it was when Madge Cook first came, somebody was leaving and they wanted, so I think it was the early 90s or around that. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
We always debate that. That's why I'm bringing it up. But I'm fairly new to the board, a couple of years now, and I moved here about 10 years ago and retired here a couple of years ago. So I see this as my community as well. And this is an important part of our community. It's interesting to note that when it was started, it was really seen as a temporary fix. Now, 37 years later, it really is a permanent center. It's really a service to our community that is essential and needed. And later on, I do have some data to show you that. I know you have that in your package as well. It's interesting to note that we have no paid employees or staff at all. It's completely a volunteer organization. There are about 30 of us that have different roles. Some of us are there every week, some monthly, but we all have an important and key role to keep this organization running for some of our most vulnerable citizens. We're proud of our award. That was an award given to us, voted on by many of our users and other citizens. So that's proudly displayed in our window there as well. So let's cut to the chase and tell you what we're asking for. So in the next slide, you're going to see that Our ask is for a walk-in refrigerator and a walk-in freezer. To subsequently, we thought that we should also have backup generator for that purpose. Now, our electrical grid is at times sketchy, and we at times have been very worried about losing our inventory. So we'd like to make sure that we have a steady stream to serve our clients and not have to worry about losing what we have on hand. We have to do a few minor renovations, but in planning for these walk-in units, you can see by the photographs that we're basically using household type fridges and freezers, and some of them we purchased, some of them we've scrounged, some of them have been donated, some are new, some not so new.
Some are very old.
Some are very old and we wonder when they'll quit and that sort of thing. But you can see on the right side of the slide, we have 10 units, around 100 square feet of cubic feet of either freezer or refrigerator space. These walk-in units that we have planned will significantly increase our space. So 7 times more for freezer and 18 times more for refrigerator. And these units, I have a photograph later on that we might be able to see, but they're basically modular units that'll fit in our existing space. So they're like Lego, they'll be put together and installed. And if for some reason we need to move them, we can do so. So basically, why do we need this change? And as you noted, our parking lot is usually full and it's getting increasingly busier at the food bank for a variety of reasons we'll talk about in a few moments. But basically, we're talking about some improved service to our clients. We're very client focused and we listen to our clients as they come in every day. We talk to them, we intersect with them. Some conversations are very delicate and heart-wrenching, but we do make sure we listen to the service that we provide. One of the key pieces about serving our communities in the municipality is shorter wait times. Some of our clients need to wait at least an hour to receive their products or food service. Now, we provide a very personalized service. We interview the clients when they come in, ask what they need for their time, and with what we have on hand, try to fulfill that need. So it does take some time, but what we've learned through talking to other food banks, particularly in Bridgewater, who installed these large units about 3 years ago, they've reduced their wait times from about an hour to 15 minutes. Wow. That's significant for a number of reasons. Some of our clients need to leave work to have service. Some of our clients have kids at home or kids in care. I have a story 2 weeks ago. There were 2 high school kids there, and I'm a former educator. I was wondering why they're there during the school day. I couldn't take that hat off. And basically they said, we have to skip school in order to get food. So they had to miss a day of school for that hour to come and go. They had to borrow a car. If we can, and so I said, well, knowing the 15-minute, I asked them about a shorter wait time.
At lunchtime.
They said they could come at lunchtime, they could come at 8:30 in the morning. We would make arrangements for that to happen. They wouldn't miss their school day. So that's one of the client-focused areas that we really want to.
Just explain to me
Sure.
briefly.
Yeah.
How these freezers and fridges cut that wait time down.
Well, first of all, we can, you saw the photographs where we have lots of refrigerators around the space. So first of all, it's just accessing. Joyce probably puts on 100 miles a Wednesday morning. So to access the products, after we interview the clients, we have to retrieve them from the refrigerators, these 10 units. So it's kind of a centralized processing.
What we were hoping is when we had the other ones, maybe like on the day before, we could go in and put what we needed in these freezers. We'd have to have a fridge and a freezer outside from where the other ones will be. But they would be right there and you would have what you wanted for that day would be right in there instead of running from one to the other. It's
Just a question, I may be naive on this one. So when someone comes in, do they ask for specific things or you just give them groceries for a week?
what we have, Sharon, is we have a list. And we don't, since pandemic, we don't leave anybody in the building unless we have to leave them in to be interviewed or something like that. So we have a girl and Scott most of the time on the doorstep. And so you have a list and you just go down the list and ask them. And then there's other things that aren't on the list that we give them
Okay.
always, like meat and vegetables and things like that.
Okay.
The other piece is our space. We've basically grown into our space. You can see by the photographs that were jammed in there. By removing 10 of those refrigerators, we're going to gain square
I
footage,
got the space part.
right? So, but what you see there is one table where we pack. We anticipate we could at least make 2 packing stations, again, processing folks faster.
Okay.
The other piece that we've noticed are around confidential conversations. We basically have no space for that. And
Yeah.
we need to create a confidential place. Conversations, as I said, are very personal.
Yeah.
We're hiding in corners to do those sort of things. The other pieces around that faster service is that our service is designed for 9:30 to 12:30 on Wednesday. Yesterday, I think there were people there at 8:30.
When I went in, it was 25 to 9 and there were
Yeah.
people were in the parking lot.
And we often extend our service an hour or so after. So again, it's a pressure on our volunteer body to provide that service. The other pieces are basically just around food storage as well. We talked about easier access. We are at capacity. If you open some of those chests, we're at the top. And that causes a problem for us receiving donations. And recently, there's been an arrangement with Food Bank Canada and Loblaws where they will funnel any expired protein mostly, but of all other products to food banks.
Yeah.
So we have more protein than we've ever had. And we don't want to ever turn that away. That's as you,
Space to keep.
well, if you go to the meat market, you know how expensive that is.
If you go in the independent store, like on any night and you see the 30%,
Mhm.
Yeah.
well, if that doesn't sell, it goes in the freezer and it's given to us.
Yeah.
We used to go to the dumpster,
Nice.
right? So it's a food diversion.
Yeah, that's good.
The other piece is just around maintaining inventory longer. Again, it's about capacity and the ability to provide that function. The other piece that Joyce, haven't heard about the price of margarine more than from Joyce, right? Joyce and a lot of the others really shop and stretch our dollar. We need that capacity in order to bulk purchase as well. So again, it's around some
When it's cheap,
efficiencies.
buy it.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's good at that.
Yeah.
The
Butter's
next,
gone up.
yeah. We have a couple slides here to talk about the supporting your work as council. Simply when we look at your vision, mission, and your values, I think that we really touch on those directly, but specifically looking at your priorities, economic development, we're keeping citizens in the community. But really, when we started crunching the numbers, preparing, we've almost spent $250,000 in the last 5 years in local business, purchasing not just groceries, but other dry goods and such. The environmental piece is just around the efficiency of around using 10 units versus more efficient, larger units. Governance and engagement, we really believe it talks about, although the food bank is not a municipal service per se, we know it's a significant service to your citizens in the municipality. Probably your priority that we hit the strongest is around healthy and vibrant communities. Really, we focus on addressing diverse needs of our clients as well, whether they be religious, ethnic, any. Also, just basically helps improve the quality of life of citizens here. Yesterday, I gave a couple milk coupons to a lady who literally cried and said, "I have some milk for my child now." So, I mean, that's pretty heart-wrenching, and it really goes to the heart of what we do as well. And I'm not going to go into the positive determinants of health, but obviously positive nutrition is not just about our healthy body, but about our healthy mind and improving the experience for school-age children. We intersect with a lot of other community organizations. Community Wheels is at our doorstep probably weekly, sometimes once or twice. We intersect with the Art Center, provides us with some art kits for kids And again, some kids receiving those, their eyes just light up, and then sometimes it's just a package of crayons. The Finney Fund, grocery stores, of course, our churches, and Chad would know our intersection with the community schools in Forest Heights. We provide service through Schools Plus and often provide food for their pantries. So I think we support your strategies, Warden. So get to the bottom line here is our project estimated is 76.7. That's for the cooler, refrigerator, and the emergency power with some contingency around that. We're looking for support from council for 53.7, and that's a 70% component. So that's the bottom line, right? We'll talk about some dollars on our next slide as well. We've tried to break this down for you to let you know some of the pressures that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
So the first bullet is just over the last 5 years. You can see that our expenses have gone up year over year, and they're compounding. In 2022, believe it or not, our expenses went up 71% on food. So we spent $32,000 more in 2022 than in 2021. Now, if you look at your own personal grocery bill, you know it's gone up. It's gone up for us, not just because of the cost of food, but because of increased clients, right? The dollar amount spent on food is significant. Imagine the grocery bill of $76,000. Now we're stretching our dollars, like you said. Joyce does great work with her group, but you can see the overrun just from the last 5 years, almost $50,000 in the last 5 years increase in products. So let's talk. The last two bullets talk about our estimates for this project. Our revenue last year was $90,000, and I want to talk a little bit about our revenue, basically based on donations. So those are donations that are basically unsolicited as well. We do very little active fundraising at the moment. So donations, Feed Nova Scotia provides us some money. That's not a guaranteed stream of input at all, but we do receive some money. And since 2014, we've received some monies twice from Feed Nova Scotia. That's the government.
Which is government money.
Yeah, it's provincial money, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Municipalities helped us a couple times when we moved in 2016, I think it was. And then during COVID, there was $1,000 or so, but relatively minor. Bequests, of course, and some fundraisers. There's a couple fundraisers at a local donut shop when you buy a cookie, those sort of things, but again, minor. Most of our income is through donations. And this past year was our best donation year. So for our 2022 fiscal, our revenue of $90,400, our expenses were around $80,000, all on food. That you can see operating is very small. So at the end of 2022, we ended up with $10,000 in the bank. We carried over 97.9. You would see that on the financial statement as part of your package. So we have about $108,000. When we move to 2023, our project year, this year, we're assuming a conservative increase in expenses of 10 grand, or sorry, of 10%. And that's just based on the expected inflation figure. Could be more, could be less. So we're looking at about 83.6 on expenses. The food bank project, as part of this request, is around 23. So we're assuming we need about $106,000 projected, and we have about 108 in the bank. So you can see we're cutting pretty close to the bone to make this improvement for our clients. We're assuming a revenue of around $65,000. You can see on the bottom line, and that's less than we received last year, but it's just an average of the last 5. So that's where we are on our projected budget as I talk to you today. This is an interesting question for me. Is there really a need for a food bank in a municipality? And I think most people around this table are going to say yes. But the story that goes for this question for me is when I moved here 10 years ago, and I worked as an educator, and when I was moving from other parts of the province, and I talked with the food bank, that was a question I heard a few times. Chester does have a reputation of an affluent, busy place.
Where everybody should be able to buy their own.
Right.
Well, I'm just going to cut
Yes.
Scott off a minute. When the pandemic came and people weren't driving back and forth to the city. I was in the food bank doing something one afternoon and a lady drove up and she said, I had no idea there was a food bank in Chester. She said, we've been giving to Halifax because they're in there all the time. They've been giving to us ever since. And that happened with more than her. With the people that don't use the food bank or
Don't
go
even
by
know
the
it.
food bank, they don't know it's.
Just looks like a parking lot full of cars, right, for example.
Yeah, what are all those people saying?
So I think this is just informative for the council, just so you know, and for the public that are seeing the presentation. So about 11% of Canadians are living in food insecure households, but 17% of Nova Scotians, right? And if you are of African descent, First Nations, or a person of color, that percentage could be 3 times. That's a whole other discussion. Poverty and child poverty. Nova Scotia is the 3rd highest provincial poverty rate in Canada, but the highest in Atlantic Canada. When we talk about child poverty, this is, again, as an educator, it kind of hits to my heart. 27.8% in Nova Scotia in the year 2000. And there is data available by postal code. So Chester Basin and East Chester, it's about the same as the provincial average. But what's interesting, and I'm sure that Tina knows this, and New Ross, look at the percentage, 42% child poverty. And child poverty is related to total income of the family. That's noteworthy, that's significant. And I'll say again, around the municipality, we serve all of the communities. New Ross is well represented, Beach Hill is well represented, East Chester and Chester Basin are well represented. But there are clients from across all the communities that do come to the food bank. And this last section on this slide really just indicates that things don't seem rosy moving forward when we talk about inflation. The cost of food in Canada is expected to rise about 7%. That's partly why I used 10% around that figure earlier. And it's the largest increase ever predicted in the Canada's Food Price Guide Index. We know electrical rates are going to go up. That's just not a pressure on the food bank, but it's a pressure on the clients.
People who are using.
Exactly. The global inflation rate is expected to go down a few percentage points, not significant in the next few years. And this data that we just recently came across is that it takes about 15 grand to feed a household with 4 kids and 2 adults a year. That was outstanding when I saw that figure. That's amazing. A little bit of other data specific to our spot. Are there more people using the Lighthouse Food Bank than there have been? Well, if you just look at this figure from 1 year over 1 year, the percentage of increase from 21 to 22 for families is at 50%. Adults, 63%. Children that come in, so children with their families, of course, 31%. But what's also quite moving here are the new households and families that are using our food bank, up over 115%, 117%. So we see the food bank, again, as that essential structure, not being a static, but we're going to have to evolve and grow and improve our service. We don't expect that these numbers are going to go down. We expect them to go up at the very least. So we're trying to prepare ourselves for that influx and position ourselves to serve our community. One of the questions we sometimes get is about frequent flyers. Do people just use the food bank as a pantry? Well, this is specific data for the Lighthouse Food Bank specifically from 21-22. The largest population are children.
Yeah, and I don't understand, are they just coming in to pick it up for the entire family or what? Because they, in 0 to 17, you wouldn't think they're out there living on their own.
No, some are, so, at the older end, but those children are counted within the family unit.
Oh, okay.
Right. So what that tells you, however, is that children are one of our most vulnerable populations. Lack of nutrition in school leads to lots of other issues about attendance and lack of learning and such. So, but I think we should note that figure.
I was looking at the chart.
Yeah.
Correctly.
Yeah, Alan, that's right, but they are children that belong to families.
Yes, yeah. The other piece, the other pie chart, again, just accentuates that 23% new families in that 1 year. Over on the right side of your screen, the frequency of visits. So this is an interesting piece of information where we look at the average use of the food bank. So over a year, individual households come to the food bank about just under 7 times. So the food bank's open weekly, 52 times. It's open for a Christmas basket. It's open at request as well. If we get a call and someone needs some food, Joyce or someone else will come to the food bank off hours and provide that service. But the average use is around 7 times for an individual and a household. So it really is a service that's there when needed. People, our clients are there at the very least when they're at the bottom and they
Not
need that
coming in
support.
when they don't need it.
No, that's rare that we see that. And again, there's just some data there around most households use the food bank 1 or 2 times a year when they need it. I think that's important when we start talking about some of the stigma that revolves around food banks. Okay. Our food bank does more than just pass out food. These are some of the other services that have grown through the food bank. We give out school supplies, backpacks for kids, personal essentials, toothpaste, deodorant, menstrual products. We've started more recently creating meal kits. So there's an education component where we provide bags of food to create a soup or a stew or whatever, and show people how to do that. So it's not just a box of prepared food or a can of soup. We have some clothing we distribute as needed, and COVID rapid tests. We support community schools, Forest Heights. Although they have other sources of products, they come to us to help support their pantry. Schools Plus intersects with us regularly. We have a partnership with the farmers market. So our clients receive a coupon and are able to go to the market to get fresh produce and support that partnership. The food recovery is interesting, where there are organizations and restaurants and such locally that will bring us food that is close to expiring. Bread products, meats, you see on the list, there's some wild game we receive. So there's a food diversion where we as individuals will put food in our green bin, maybe. Some of that food before it gets to that stage from larger organizations comes to us. I talked about community wheels already. Christmas is if you've driven by a few days before Christmas, we have quite an organization or quite a setup where we provide 3 or 4 or 5 boxes of food and to families that register with us. So that's 115 families, that's 115 turkeys flying out of the food bank on that day. And we have a lot of volunteers that give us gifts. So the children will have gifts at Christmas. And again, that's a very poignant moment when we give families gifts for their kids.
And when Scott says turkeys, we get 25 turkeys from Feed Nova Scotia and we buy 75.
Right, yeah. I talked about the Art Center providing us some kits, but what we found with our personal contact with clients on the doorstep when they're waiting or when we're providing them food, you get to know folks. And we're starting to realize that we have some fairly significant advocacy conversations. So when someone might say, I'm having trouble finding employment, because of our network of volunteers, we can make some suggestions. Do you need a suit jacket? Do you need some help with a resume? We've heard that there's a job here. So some of that advocacy work is on the side, but it's pretty important to many of the clients. This last slide these are quotes from some of our clients. I told you about the third one about the kids skipping school. I guess I told you also about the mom who was touched by getting the milk coupon. The first quote is interesting. This was a young person that said, this is the last time I'm going to be here. You supported me through a rough time. I went to community college. I'm good to go. And what's interesting, many, many times people will come back in our opening times and say, you know what? You were there when I needed. Here's a donation. Many, many times people come in and just say, I want to give back. And that's, again, a very important relationship that we've had. So in the end, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. And Joyce, is there anything?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
No, I don't have any questions. I mean, you do fantastic work. I mean, I'm shocked at the people who use it, but I know that they are out there, and without you, they would be in serious trouble.
Well, Alan, just a couple weeks ago, we usually have 1 or 2 new families on average a week lately. The other week we had 4.
Yeah.
4 families that had never been there.
Oh, I know people are struggling.
Because,
at the
I mean,
moment.
you either, they come and put oil in your oil tank and that takes,
You can't afford anything else after that.
well,
When we talk about new families, we often wonder about those that don't come, that may need it. And that's why I brought up the point about stigma,
Yeah.
right? There is some courage taken to come into that parking lot and to stand on the deck.
Yeah.
So we want to reduce that as much as we can.
and we do have the odd family that really is very upset about coming. And we will tell them to come later.
Yeah.
When people are gone.
Yeah.
To try to avoid all
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
Tina?
Thank you. Probably don't have anything rocket science or to add, but just to thank you. And I couldn't agree more with one of your opening statements, Scott. Food bank, an important part of our community.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with that more. I appreciated a reminder of the stats, the users, increasing costs, all of those facts and points that you made. So it was a reminder for me, so thank you. And certainly very powerful, the testimonials. These are real people, they're in our communities, they're in our families.
Yes.
They're us, they're me. And certainly in the work that I get to do, and I'm honored to do in terms of visiting with my communities from the end of, LaVille Road to Fraxville Road, to the tip of Aldersville, to Doctors Brook. I have the conversations with people. A lot of times it might be going in and seeing them around something as simple as a heating rebate.
Right.
The municipal offering of the property tax rebate for lower income thresholds.
Right.
And they have shared with me the appreciation of your deliveries to the community and the after hours outside of the traditional hours. So just thank you. I know that we've all said that, but
Thank you.
it does mean an awful lot.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the board.
Community of New Ross is very good.
Yes.
Andre?
I'll just say thanks, Scott and Joyce, for coming in. I really enjoy it when people get a lot of groups that come in here, and I really like it when groups remind us how they're supporting our municipal priorities, which you did a good job of here today. Obviously, we're not having a discussion about grants at this time, but I think you probably can rest assured that council's very cognizant of the need, and it was a good reminder that you gave us today. I also like that the food bank doesn't generally come and ask us for very much. So now you've got this very important project, and you're giving us an opportunity to reinforce this critical community support. So thank you.
Thank you.
As well, thank you. And I was more interested, I shouldn't say more interested, but I like the idea of the walk-in freezer and fridge that is, because in my day, or even you built a walk-in or a walk-in freezer, and that's what it is. And you can't move it. You can actually take it apart and move it, but it's not like you said, like a Lego part. And I think that's a great fact. And the fact that it's just gonna save so much time. I mean, if you're gonna root through a freezer for something.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It's
Absolutely.
gonna make it so much better because
yeah.
you get a chest freezer. And even though you keep going down to the bottom,
Yeah.
there's still.
Yeah, they're not that tall.
No, you're right.
A few times I've had to fish that, Joyce. I can reach the bottom.
Good, he fishes us out of the freezer.
So thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all you do. It's quite moving to realize how many utilize your service, actually.
Thank you.
And we have a really good bunch of volunteers.
Yeah.
We do.
We do.
Absolutely. So
Thank you
Warren,
very much.
Warren Dan, I would just extend an invitation. I know Andre visited recently but the invitation is always open for you or any of the council. And significantly, I think you would really see us in action if you can come during our hours of operation on Wednesday morning. So that invitation is open.
Thanks very much. That's what I'll try to make there.
Thank you very much. Great, super.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
we're running slightly late. Early years daycare.
Can we have a 5-minute washroom break?
Well, I was gonna have it after.
Oh, okay, sure.
Well, yeah, just because we're running late
Sure.
for
It's
that.
Whoa, that's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, well, yes.
I'm not gonna sit here and even begin to say that anything that I talk about in this project is half as valuable as what those folks are doing to feed the citizens of our municipality. But we do have a role in the community as well. I'm the director at Through the Years Early Learning Center, and you would know us as Through the Years Daycare and Community Center, but we recently changed our name to reflect the field and what encompass, I guess, everything that we're doing at the Learning Center now. We know that children begin learning at birth, and so we don't just care for their daily needs, diapering and so on like that. We're teaching them from the beginning. So now our name reflects that.
Yeah, more going on there than we're used to.
Exactly, yeah.
You haven't been in for a while.
No, this is overwhelming, yeah, but anyway. So we have presented a grant for funding. We have several stakeholders in this project that we're very passionate about. It is time to upgrade some of our outdoor settings. We are very proud that over the 10 years that we've been in the building, we have used some operating money. I believe you've helped us as well over time through your yearly contribution. Some of that money has gone to creating an inclusive environment, accessible environment within the walls of the building. So we have chair lifts for those children who need to be lifted onto change tables. We have buttons on all of our doors now that automatically open the doors. We have adaptive equipment like a hippocamp and a snow coach so that any children with accessibility issues are able to enjoy the outdoors like all others. And we also are able to put some of the money into hiring extra staff to enhance ratio, so those children with differing needs can have somebody to help them more closely participate in all the activities. So now we're turning our energy to our outdoor settings. One specifically starting with the area that you see in the pictures. I don't know if I sent, I think I sent, yeah, these pictures. So these are this is the area that we're looking at right now. And it is going to be used for children from 18 months up through when they go off to school at 4+ or 5, if they stay with us through their pre-primary. Some children are now going to pre-primary, some children are still staying at the Learning Center through that. So 18 months, kind of preschool age. What we have now is we had a piece of equipment brought up from our previous site, which is now Black Harbor Distilleries, but it was a 2-room schoolhouse at 419 Highway 329, the old Fox Point School. We had a piece of playground equipment there. And we had it moved up to our present location, but about 5 years ago, it fell in disrepair and it was not safe anymore because the most of it was made of wood.
Yeah.
So it was deteriorating. So we had to dismantle that, kind of put it, and so it's just right now in a wide open space with some loose parts, some donated, a donated playhouse and so on like that. And it's pea gravel. And so pea gravel, it makes inaccessible for anybody who's has any mobility issues, who has uses a wheelchair or a walker, or even some of the littler ones, you know, that are not as steady on their feet as they could be, are having trouble, you know, using that area. They tend to have to go to the baby area where there is grass. We tried to plant some grass there, but, you know, 18, 20 children, you know, ripped that up in no time. So we had to go with the pea gravel. And so we have partnered with Cobequid Consulting, and they're a company, they're pretty unique in Eastern Canada. They specialize in natural and inclusive outdoor play spaces. They are so highly sought after that they don't pick every project that wants to hire them. So they came down and kind of interviewed me. I felt I was being interviewed rather than, you know, saying, do you want the job? I felt I was being kind of interviewed, but we did very well. Our vision, a mission and values were right on what they also hold value in. And so they, the inclusive part of things, that we have zero turn away. We've never turned away a child with differing needs because we couldn't offer them space, or you know, we just couldn't suit their needs. So he was proud to hear that, and he said that we were a company or an organization that they wanted to work with. So in December, he came down and worked with the educators and myself to kind of say, okay, what do you want this play space to look like? And what are your priorities? And so when we look at that, when we look at children that age, we know that they like to climb. So there's some climbing elements in the layout. And so you can see the little play structure with the transfer station slide. And so they're, you know, they have a couple of different ways to get up that, and then they slide down. And then the log balance, that's all about climbing and going under and over and all like that. The restorative teaching circle has a bit of, and whale drum has a bit of, obviously, cultural significance. And so, you know, gathering in that, it just looks like a really cozy, nice place to gather, share stories. I'm sure the children will try to use it as a balance beam as well, now that I think about it. And if you see the picnic table, it looks a little off, but what it is you see, they even think about inclusivity when they design that, because it's longer on one end, and so you can get the wheelchair right under there, and so that child within the wheelchair can join us too. And so the Rainbow Trio, it's more about develop it obviously it makes music, but children that are on the autism spectrum, that are flight risks, you know, that have trouble regulating, music often grounds them, regulates them. It just touches them in a way that we don't understand, but we are really joyful to see. And so those three elements were put in there with that in mind, and they've experienced a lot of wonderful comments over the years of those three elements, and the whale drum being great. And so, yeah, so that's one of the pictures is, yeah, like that one is a little bit more about the different elements, and then the far away one is kind of how it fits into the center. I did give you a little bit about a little bit of an explanation about Cobequid and what they do. And the price tag, you probably were blown away at, yes, but it, it is specialized work and it is, you know, just something as unique as they make sure that the slides are stainless steel. And you think of years ago when, you know, slides were stainless steel and you would slide down on a hot day and burn yourself, or you would, you know, get static. But the reason that is because plastics, if we were to ever have a child with differing needs that had cochlear implants, a plastic slide would mess with their cochlear implants and make them ineffective. So so they, you know, they've done all that work. They've done all that. They've got all that experience. So we need to rely on them. I mean, we may never have one, but we certainly may, you know, and so that's good to know. So we'll be going back to the stainless steel slides. We'll just make sure to turn it in a way that it doesn't get full sun. But we have sunshades over our playgrounds anyway, so it wouldn't get direct sun on anyway. But it was just those kind of elements that and thought that were, and research that were put into this company's plan that attracted it to us to them. And they certainly are going to be willing to work with us. As you can see from our budget in the application, is we have a number of stakeholders. So when we expanded last year to from our original 100 children to 124 children, we now have an offsite before and after program at Aspetongan School. And so we're always expanding and looking for the need in the community. And so that, as part of that, the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development gave us a $59,000 grant, 33,000 of which, 33 and change, were earmarked to outdoor improvements and upgrades. And so we've also, the JD Shatford Trust has also seen value in our project and awarded us $10,000 just before Christmas. Merry Christmas to us. So, oh, that was American. So it ended up when the check was cashed being 13. Yeah. I wanted to be fully transparent there. So, but I think that's on the application. She did change that because yes. Okay. Because there's 13 something. And then we also have applications into the Department of Communities, Cultures, Tourism and Heritage for the same amount that we're asking council for, and the Aspetongan Heritage Trust, which are our lease, we lease the space from them on the lane, and have been, like yourselves, incredible supporters over the years of what we do. And those are outstanding. Now, what will happen if we are unsuccessful in any of it today or any of the future other applications which are outstanding is Gordy's great. He's going to be at Quabequid. He's going to work with us with, this was kind of our dream plan. And so we will then work with him with the money that we have to create something that still honors the vision of inclusivity. You know, there are some things that can go, there are some things that can. Obviously, the turf is going to have to be a priority so that it is accessible. I think that the trike track is going to be a priority, and the climbing structure. So those three things will be the priority. The other things we can look at is there may in fact be some families within our daycare. We have over 120 families that maybe we can use some of their skills around you know, building some of the other smaller elements like the you know, some of the live edge benches or so on like that at a lower price tag. And so we definitely can adapt the plan to suit the budget that we have. And it can be done gradually too. We can add elements over the years for sure. I guess the last thing I wanted to share with you that's probably not in the grant, but just as a informational component is you may or may not have seen childcare in the news a lot over the last year. The new early learning and childcare initiative is Canada-wide, and it is also, you know, in this province, we have an agreement and lots of money being filtered into childcare. There's really, I want to let you know that it's not operational money. We have had our parent fees frozen since 2016, so we're still working on revenue from 2016 fees. And as you know, everything has kind of gone up since that. There are two really great revenue streams that we are taking advantage of. One being parents are being helped up to 50% for their childcare fees now. So a parent who had an infant that was in our learning center that paid $33 a day, they're only paying, you know, $15, $16 a day now. And so that's wonderful. And they're promising over the next couple of years to get that down to $10 a day across the board for any parent. And so we're looking forward, and we love that. So we get that money directly based on our enrollment. We don't get a cent more than children that are there. So you put in your enrollment. If you only have 7 or 8 babies, you don't get money for 8 babies. You get money for 7, and that's great. But there's not any extra. That's going directly to help families. The other revenue stream that we are finally fortunate enough to get is to help the educators, their salaries. And so same thing. And it's not 100% of their salary. So if somebody was making $17 a day previous to the ELCC, they're up around $24, $25 an hour now on the wage scale. Still not earning a living wage, which is $26 in this province now, 26 and change, but it's better. We're getting there. And so so that filters into the center the similar way that the parent fees do. They look at it 2 weeks at a time. What did you have for staff at what level? Because we have 3 levels of training. And how many hours did they work? And we subsidize you a little over half for that. So we're responsible for half and they're responsible for half. So those are the kind of, when you do hear of, and you hear the great stuff from the government, but kind of, I think some of our families even that I speak to, like, oh, you guys must be rolling in money now, or, you know, why are you fundraising anymore, or anything like that. It's not all rosy. We still struggle, like, you know, because power, propane, groceries, woo. And we still maintain the same nutritional standards as we did pre-pandemic. And so those all have grown. And, you know, so projects like this, while they may seem above and beyond what, or frivolous, some might say, this is really the only way. We're never going to have a large amount of operational, like, revenue to be able to put into capital projects like this. And it is important, because if anything came out of the pandemic, it was how important it is to be outside the majority of the time. And that's where we stay healthiest. And we've always known that with children, and they love to be outside, and having, you know, an environment that they can enjoy and is inclusive and for all is, yeah, we're putting our energy right now.
Floyd, you had a question?
No, not really a question. No, I just thank Mary Ellen for the presentation, but I just want to support what you're saying about outdoors, because I don't use the daycare anymore. But I do see the kids going to the beach, outside playing, going for walks on the sidewalk. So that's a good question. What you're trying to do, keeping the outdoors, goes in tradition with what you've done all along.
Yes.
And it's very nice to see that you're not asking for computers
Yes,
Kids will be
exactly.
outside, and
Yeah.
I think that's excellent, because too many kids are sitting inside all the time.
Inside too much now.
And
Yeah.
another thing is, it's very nice to see is all the different places you went to for funding. I mean, you could have come here and asked for $50,000 or $60,000, but you've
Yeah.
done your homework, I think, in the
Yeah.
research, so thank you for that.
Anyone else questions?
I do.
Hi.
Hi, hello again. It's not a question on maybe the new playground project itself.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, absolutely. But because you're here, I get to ask a question in terms of your balance sheet. That's okay?
Mhm.
Because I'm interested in growth and expansion and just future plans, knowing what's happening in the municipality.
Mhm.
So I see that, under the balance sheet, you have deferred revenue miscellaneous 71, almost 72,000. That's fine. I'm not asking about that. Deferred revenue, new building, 477. So I'm wondering what that is. And I'm not an accountant in terms, I might. be-
Oh, yeah. I didn't bring my assistant. She couldn't come today. And she wouldn't be able to answer that like that.
I might be reading up, financial statements, and I don't mind admitting when I don't know something or misread something. But do you have plans in the works for a new site, new building? What's happening? 407, I'm sure that's 477,000. 477,297.
So that's not money that, isn't deferred revenue. I'm gonna have to get back to you, I think, because I don't think, well, it's obviously not money we have in the bank, I can guarantee you that. I think it's that's, like, we don't own the building yet, we still have a mortgage through the housing authority.
Okay.
So I believe that's the value of the building.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will definitely, like, Carol would have been able to answer that completely. But I believe if that is incorrect, I'll definitely let you know.
No, and it does not impact.
Yeah.
The presentation.
Yeah.
and Consideration of this project.
Yeah,
On the screen and so on, but it's just of interest.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Nana.
Anyone else questions? We're running well behind, I hate to say. that.
No, that's okay. And I don't want to take any more time.
We aren't making a
but-
decision today. You are.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you
See you
so
again.
much for your time.
Yeah, take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay, we're taking a 10-minute break.